What qualifies a city to host the Olympics? Interested cities submit a bid to the IOC or International Olympic Council. The council is comprised of 105 people from all over the world that individually vote from all the possible cities that entered bids. The IOC is meant to vote on all aspects of the Olympic host city. There are 2 rounds of voting. After the first round, it is narrowed down to the top 3 options. With all the buzz going on after the 2012 London Olympics, countries are full of pride and the world seems like it's at its least vulnerable. However, should London really celebrate as extravagantly as Usain Bolt does after a race? Hosting the Olympics seems like it would not only be awesome but beneficial to the host country. But just under the surface, anyone might start to question, is it worth it? So why wouldn't every city see merit in hosting the Olympics? It could be the millions of dollars in debt that's incurred from not only applying for a bid, but building a stadium or cleaning up the city and perfecting the public transit system. There is so much that goes into planning such a vast event. Every set of eyes in the world is on that city for those 17 days. Every aspect of the event is planned. Every I is dotted, every T is crossed. Every disaster that could go wrong has to be prepared for. Natural disaster, terrorism, financial crisis, poor infrastructure. With all of the changes that have to be made to a city in preparation for the events, the financial risk outweighs the financial benefits in almost every Olympics.
The 1976 Summer Games in Montreal took 30 years to pay off and cost a deficit equivalent to 10 billion current US dollars. The IOC had to beg Los Angeles to host the following Olympics, which turned out to be the only Olympics to avoid using taxpayer money since the first in 1896. The 2012 Games alone predicted a $4 billion expense, but ended up spending $20 billion. Redesigning infrastructure and constructing the short-lived venues itself adds up. Beijing's main stadium cost 425 million US dollars and London's 486. Like the Beijing stadium, the London stadium is likely to be relatively unused and filled in the future. Consider the transportation initiative. This year, the network of roads in London, which were first laid out by the Romans, caused many grinding gears. In the LA Games previously mentioned, over 500 buses were allocated to prepare for the expected visitors. Yet the over 1 million boardings that occurred fell short of this, supposedly due to more attendees living in Southern California than expected, and 20% lower attendance rate than forecasted. Though the games were profitable that year, this still provided a waste of resources, cause of pollution, and unnecessary congestion.
The biggest risk of all in the public's mind is security. Security at such a large-scale event is extremely complex. There are many individual aspects to this. Not only is there the threat of terrorism, but security for the sanctity of the games themselves. Your city needs to focus on preventing athletes from trying to get ahead by using performance-enhancing drugs or trying to inhibit competitors. The host of the Olympic Games needs to do a thorough check on athletes for performance enhancers such as steroids. Even with these precautions in place, at the London Games, there were many rumors of athletes doping, as they turned in new world records and personal best times of more than 5-second improvements. However, due to the tests, all that these remain to be are rumors. So you must learn from this lesson and be sure to provide an atmosphere with unbiased judging and an even playing field for all athletes.
In such a large city as London, you will need to offer many different venues. This will cause a loose distribution of security personnel. This requires that many guards need to be hired, and you must take this into account or face the same mistake that England did in its most recent Olympic Games, falling short by hundreds of security workers. Luckily, there was no plot to disrupt the Games as there has been in the past, such as the Munich Games of 1972, when 11 Israeli competitors were taken hostage and eventually killed by a terrorist group from Palestine called Black September. There was another attack in 1996 at the Atlanta Games, where 100 people were left injured and several were killed. This causes haunting memories and fear which is associated with your home city. Not only do you need to be prepared for possible violence, but you also must be on good terms with other countries throughout the world. There have been many politically motivated boycotts in the past. The United States and 64 other countries refused to participate in the Games in Moscow in the summer of 1980 because of the Cold War and the Russian invasion of Afghanistan. Russia returned the favor in 1984 when Los Angeles hosted the Games, along with 13 of their allies. These were not the only boycotts, however. Many African nations boycotted in 1976 due to the IOC not banning New Zealand from the Games. All of these political and security features can change the public perception of your city. It's up to you to make sure that you are prepared to make it a positive change.
Public perception of the potential city will also involve preconceived biases. Chicago recently experienced this when bidding for the 2016 Games, suffering from a general notion that the city was unsafe, partially due to its history with names like Al Capone. As a result, the city lost roughly $250 million from all the planning and presentation costs. This illustrates the primary problem with Olympian Risk. Lay people don't know about it. Media covers mostly security and terrorism in a negative light while presenting the urban planning, construction, and financial aspects in a manner which astonishes and amazes more than raises mental red flags. The heightened nationality felt during the time leading up to the games is fed by commercial and sports coverage that engages even those who aren't die-hard sports fans. All of this puts viewers in an emotional state where statistics mean little and are quickly forgotten, if they are even said or heard. Therefore, laypeople believe mostly what they see visually, that the stadiums built will be paid off over time from the example they see on TV, and that safety is mostly ensured via the planning done by many experts way ahead of time for the attendance of royalty and celebrities. But by and large, financial analysis proves that the status quo is not acceptable, and to continue to allow the public to assume their tax dollars are safe is an act of denial. So in the future, if you hear about your city being put up for a bid, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it?